Okay, let me start now, and if people join later, I'll admit them as they come. So, okay, so welcome to lecture 3, that series of 5 lectures. So we have seen how AI could help to alleviate poverty. We talked about hunger last week, agriculture and hunger. This week will be focused on cities and communities. It's mostly cities. Next lecture will be about energy, and the last one will be about nature. You can sign up for the forthcoming lectures. And it's based on the book, which is coming out on October 1st. So you see that the books cover like many more topics, but we'll have chosen topics that we have not covered before. So the outline of the talk today will give you an overview. It's really an overview. I won't go into like any models in great details, but to give you some ideas of what AI can do to help cities and communities. So we'll go over the Sustainable Development Goals. You must be familiar with them by now. Talk about the state of the cities and communities, the targets for the specific goal. How we manage cities and communities, how AI can help manage cities and communities, go over some case studies, and conclude. It should be done in 1 hour. So these are the goals of the SDG, right? This is the United Nations. And you know that they go from number 1 to number 17. And today we talk about goal 11, right? The goal 11, sustainable cities and communities. So the state of cities and communities. So world population is increasingly living in cities. According to the United Nations, 55% of the world's population lives in urban areas, right, in 2018, from 30% in 1950, right? And they are expected to grow to 68% by 2050, right? With the greatest increase in Asia and Africa, right? So not only you have people like population migrating from rural areas to urban areas, but the population is also increasing, right? Remember that by 2050, we expect the population to reach like 10 billion people, right? There's a big migration and increase in urban population. As the country develops, life expectancy of the urban population increases, right? You have higher wages in manufacturing and services in urban area and in urban areas, attract migrants from the rural areas, right? So usually in rural areas, productivity is very low, and when productivity is high, there are not that many jobs available. It's done by machine. So here it's a nice picture from a report from the United Nations of the population increase. So you see, like like a population of a bit over 5 billion in 1990, right? To now we are like around like 7 billion, and then we'll expect to reach like 8 billion by 2030, right? And 10 billion by 2050. And the different colors reflect urban areas of, so the yellow is the rural areas, green is the urban areas with fewer than 500,000 inhabitants. And then the dark blue is like urban areas of 10 million plus, right? 10 million plus. So you see like this, the share of the urban population is increasing, right? The rural population is stagnant, remains stagnant. here, like it is also an interesting table. So these are the city size range, right, worldwide by population in 2018 and compared to 2030. So 2018, even probably today, Tokyo in Japan is probably the largest largest city, right? With around 37 million people in Tokyo, followed by Delhi. But in 2030, you see that Delhi is going to go to overtake Tokyo, right? And gaining like 10 million people, and the population of Tokyo will in fact decrease. Right? You see, it goes down to 36.5 million. And then you see Shanghai, you see that Bangladesh, Dhaka also is increasing very fast, 28 million in the 2030. Then Egypt, India, China, Mexico, Brazil, and then Congo, Republic of Congo, right? Here's also an interesting map, and you see like these mega cities, right? There's these very large cities. They're mostly in the south, right? And you see a few, probably it's LA and New York, but they're mostly in the south and in Africa and in Asia. So we talk about the urban population, and what is interesting about cities that here the this interesting statistics, like $70 trillion of economic activity, of 80% of world GDP are generated in cities, right? And that share of GDP is expected to increase with the rising urban population. Right? So people move to cities, and they produce more, right? They produce more and they demand more. Right? They demand more for the goods and services. So they require housing, infrastructure, goods, basic services. The sad truth is that in many of lower income and middle income countries, large cities are overwhelmed and are not able to adequately accommodate the increase in population, forcing the poorest population to live in slums. However, urban areas can bring a lot of benefits, such as at least to the average, inhabitant of such a higher wages, more education, educational opportunities, business opportunities, leisure activities, right? But it's also more expensive to live in cities, right? Higher cost of living, lack of housing, traffic congestion, crime, pollution, things that you didn't have outside of cities. So the urban areas, they're expanding and they become major consumer of energy, and they generate pollution, right? So cities, not surprisingly, they are the source of more than 75% of greenhouse gas emission, right? Due to housing, office development, construction, transportation, private consumption, business activities, right? And beyond the direct footprint of cities, there's a large impact on the environment due to disposal of waste, untreated wastewater, air pollution, reduction in green spaces, forests, biodiversity, and natural habitats. Right? So new cities that are built, they take space from forests, green space, etc. So related to climate change, so cities, to be sustainable, need to prevent the damage of climate change. Right, climate change would be storm of wind, extreme precipitation, flood, and sea level rise, chemical change, water scarcity, mass movement, earthquakes, extreme temperature, wildfire. So usually, for climate change, you have two approaches that you have to do together: mitigation and adaptation. So mitigation is to invest in sustainable transport, right? Public transportation, metro, tramways, electric vehicles, buses, bicycles. We'll go over this later. Building infrastructure and energy efficiency, renewable energy, general urban development and management, waste and wastewater management. Right? For adaptation, right? So mitigation means try to to reduce the change of of climate change. Adaptation is that it is going to happen and we have to adapt to it, right? So cities have to invest in water and wastewater management, disaster risk management, urban development management, infrastructure, energy, the built environment, sustainable transportation, maybe invest in other built environment, sustainable transportation, agriculture, forestry, natural resource management, coastal protection, building infrastructure, and energy efficiency. Okay. So for the SDG, usually they come up with a list of targets. And here, so these are a few. I cite a few. I won't go over like all of them because they kind of repeat what we have seen before. But so first will be ensure access for all to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and affordable housing and basic services and upgrade slums. Target 11.2 by 2030 provide access to safe, affordable, accessible, and sustainable transport systems for all, improving road safety, notably by expanding public transport with special attention to the needs of those in vulnerable situations. Target 11.3, enhance inclusive, sustainable urbanization and capacity for participatory, integrated, and sustainable human settlement planning management in all countries. Target 11.5 by 2030 significantly reduce the number of deaths due to like natural disasters, water-related disasters. There's a focus of protecting the poor and people in vulnerable situations. Target 11.6, paying special attention to air quality and municipal and other waste management. This is a big issue in developing countries. Target 11.7, provide universal access to safe, inclusive, and accessible green and public spaces, in particular for women and children, other persons, and persons with disabilities. So you get the idea of these targets. The idea is really to have like sustainability, right? So you have the cities have to grow, but you have to be able to manage all the things that come with it, right? Come with this city. How to manage cities and communities. So I cite a paper that suggests 7 sectoral transformations beneficial to cities. So there are some good ideas. Design and deliver basic infrastructure services such as water, sanitation, transport, and energy to the vulnerable populations that have good coverage, are of quality, and are affordable. Things that we take for as given, right, in the US. Partner with alternative service providers such as community-based organizations to increase access to municipal services. Collect and use data to gain local insight. Recognize and support informal workers, give them legal rights, economic and social rights, access to core infrastructure services, social protection, and representation. Right? Many of these workers, for instance, can be in these cities illegally, don't have like papers, or sometimes might not even be from the country, right? They can be like immigrants or refugees. Finance and subsidize to fill gaps in core services, develop urban planning to improve infrastructure services and land use, and transform governance and institutions to build diverse coalitions and alignment. Right? Alignment could be, we'll talk about AI alignment, but most of it is alignment of the city government and the cities. Right? Is the city well managed? Is there good governance and so on? How AI can help manage cities and communities. So here we have introduced in the previous lectures that framework prediction, PCOC, prediction, coordination, optimization, and control. So let's go over this. Prediction is like mostly what you see in AI and machine learning involves a prediction today. So AI can help predict demand for municipal services, such as sanitation, drinkable water, energy, public transportation, public schools, housing, with the growing urban population and migration. Right? So that's why these models of urban growth are so important. AI can help predict tax revenues, potential revenue shortfalls based on economic activity, tax rates, tax collections, and compliance. AI can predict environmental variables such as air pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, water quality. You use sensors, volume of waste disposals, and the effects on population well-being. You use sensors, surveys, social media, citizen reporting, and information on population, household, transportation, energy and water consumption, business and economic activities. Right? So the idea is to have sensors, to have measures, to collect data, to have big data, and the analytics to go with that. Yeah. Coordination. So prediction is really the bread and butter of AI on machine learning. Coordination. AI can help to plan cities and communities on the services they provide to their residents. AI can identify drivers influencing specific outcomes and services, and coordinate the different city departments that need to be involved. Right? For instance, like poor student performance, right? Let's consider, say, like public school, right? So the city finance the public schools, and some areas have a poor student performance, and try to find out why. Right? So it could be due to the school, housing, family circumstances, transportation time, malnutrition, poor health. Right? The students might be in poor health and might be have difficulty to study. So there will need coordination from education, housing, social services, health, transportation departments, etc. Right? New urban development, we also need coordination from the several departments and services that AI can help set up. AI can also assist in coordinating shared economy. So we talk a lot in shared economy, that you see it in Northern Europe, for instance. Shared economy means that you share like vehicles, you share tools, you can share meals, right? So you can have this kind of economy if you identify what the resources are available, such as private cars, extra food, tools, and match them with potential users for consumers. Right? So this I know you see that a lot in the US. So in the US, you have, for instance, they have that you have apps that tells you when restaurants have like surplus of food they can buy cheaply, for instance, towards the end of the day. So AI can help for that. Optimization. AI can optimally allocate resources to reach goals defined by the city or community. AI could calculate costs and benefits for each individual options and choose the most effective course of actions. To limit crime, AI could try to optimize the teams of police officers, of patrols, or mental health professionals to work together to be dispatched to maximize the impact. AI could help to optimize shelter, social services, healthcare resources to take care of the most vulnerable populations. Right. So this you see a bit of, in policing you see it a lot, but you see it a little bit now. Control. So control is more in the future, right? But you start to see some of it. AI can control urban traffic, right? Enforce common infractions such as speeding and illegal parking automatically. I think in some cities, cameras take picture of your plate number and send you directly at your home address the ticket. Right? So it's could say AI, the computer vision is involved. AI can manage property, business tax collections, customer services, customer assistance. So this you start to see it. In the future, you'll see AI controlling autonomous vehicles, cars, but buses and trains, right? And they control the availability of shared modes of transportation. AI can maintain and take care of plants, public space, can maintain roads, public services, and buildings. So three case studies. One is on transportation in cities. One is in urban development. The third one would be more about challenges, right, of using AI for smart cities. And we'll talk a bit about smart cities. So first, transportation in cities. So here, I mentioned a paper that you find in reference, just like did the survey on this topic. So they divide transportation systems into traffic management, public transportation, safety management, manufacturing, and logistics. Okay. So in traffic management, the main goal is to avoid congestion. So you can think that AI can predict congestions and suggest alternative routes to vehicles. So this is what you can see already on your phone, right? When you drive, if you have a car. AI can so here if the AI is on the vehicle directly, AI can guide traffic lights and manage traffic flows in real time. We're predicting traffic using cameras or sensors on vehicles or sensors on light poles or on the traffic lights themselves. As of today, traffic lights are in fact not very smart. Right? They are calibrated maybe initially, but after that they follow some fixed rules. So they don't monitor traffic or anything. So it's not hard to imagine that you can AI can help to optimize traffic lights. Right? So some system are already in place. Something called I think short track doesn't use AI, but it's the same idea. Try to analyze traffic to guide traffic lights by some control. So AI can help optimize traffic patterns, design better routes also. So when you plan a city, right, you don't usually the routes are kind of heuristic. So you can build the roads, size of the roads. It should be one way, two ways, and you can simulate, the traffic, optimize that, right? Something that I am in New York City, and there's a plan to introduce congestion pricing next year, end of next year. So congestion pricing means that you have to in New York City you have to pay to drive south of 60th Street. Right, so it's a big chunk of Manhattan. You have to pay, and there will be peak hours and off-peak hours, night hours, and there's different prices. So probably the rules are going to be kind of it'd be a fixed price. So when people talk about maybe could go up to $23 to drive on peak hour. During peak hours, maybe go down to $9 or $5 in off-peak hours, for instance. But peak hours, curiously, is like 14 hours during the day. Right? So most of the day, the day is already a peak hours. But it's probably not done very scientifically, so it's not my guess. But you think that AI could do a better job, right? Could really analyze traffic in real time. And when there's no traffic at 2 in the morning, it should really be off-peak. Or if it's at 9 p.m., there's no traffic, it should be off-peak. And then you can design the optimal tariff, the optimal price to manage the traffic flow. Okay. For public transportation, so trains, metros, tramways, buses. So here again, AI can predict traffic, the usage of public transportation, inform users and passengers. Now you start to see that when platforms tell you the trains need to come on. But you think an AI could give more useful information, can help optimize routes, right, for individual travelers, schedules for trains and driving patterns, right? AI could help for optimal refueling, for instance, of public buses or charging if they're electric. They can help for predictive maintenance, right? They can send alerts to drivers, technicians, or fleet managers when the electric bus needs to some repairs and to be maintained. AI could send a signal for it. In safety management, AI can assist drivers to limit fatigue, provide some autopilot and remote control capabilities, right? For example, for trains, right? So trains could be piloted remotely. That can be used as early warning system to prevent collisions, so between trains, between buses, between vehicles. Driver failures, right? Like a driver seems to have erratic behavior. Passengers, right? Some of the passengers, sometimes in automatic trains, there's nobody around. There's some security issue, like AI could survey the train and send a signal, call 911 process. In manufacturing and logistics, those here is more upstream. You can generate data on sensors in vehicles, vehicle parts, or data sent by suppliers to predict, optimize production and delivery. It can also be used for inspection, quality control, and quality monitoring. Okay. So the second case study is on the decision-making, urban development, and land management. So this paper, like I think these are researchers from they're from Zurich, if I'm not mistaken. AI is used for simulation for urban growth. We talked before about how important it was to be able to predict urban growth so that you can predict all the services, all the requirements to service the population. AI can use to classify land use in urban areas, and they can do also specific tasks such as predicting traffic that you have just seen, or crime. Right? So in simulation, AI can be combined with what they call like cell grid modeling, right? Simulate urban growth and land use, and also for energy management and emergency management, such as flooding or extreme weather events. Right? So typically in these like type of models, these like cell models, like each cell, so these like pixel on the grid or squared on the grid, they transition, right? They develop so from like green space, they become urban space or constructed space or commercial space. So they are estimated with with historical data, with simulated data, and they use simulated and they generate simulated urban development scenarios. Right? On top of that, you can also add agents, so it'd be people, living there, multi-agent systems, right, that have their own like behaviors, and it could be like commuters, it could be like shop owners, tourists, and so on, and model them and try to simulate their consumptions, their travel pattern, etc. AI can be used for classification of land use, so using satellite data. So you have seen the previous lectures for poverty of agriculture. This is like a common use of satellite data. So you can monitor urban development changes, right? You can monitor urban heat, right? You can use infrared sensors and look at the heat generated in cities and see, what are the best areas, to how the city should be built to limit urban heat. You look at in wartime, you can look at urban destruction, right? And you can also look at migration, right? You can see like migrating migrant population living close to cities and so on. You can also identify them. AI can be used for prediction of traffic, right, from cameras and sensors on roads of vehicles. We talked about this before. It can also be used for crime prediction, right? And monitoring using CCTVs or information collected by public police forces or even social medias. Right? The third paper is more about challenges, right? So so you might have heard about that China has built a lot of like brand new cities, right? That China in 5 years they can build like from nothing they can build a brand new cities. So they've been building like 20 to 30 cities every year, right? Starting building cities, 20, 30 cities every year. It take them more than a year probably to complete. And but they are facing challenges. So these are the list of 10 challenges that these Chinese researchers have documented. So lack of infrastructure, and here I refer to chapters in the book or future lectures. Insufficient funds of capital, right? So there's not enough money to finance AI initiatives. Cybersecurity and data risk, smart waste and health management. Lack of professionals, so like lack of AI and IT talent, managing energy demands, transportations, environmental risk, managing public health and education, right? We talk about this in the book. And the 10th, a lack of trust in AI and IoT. IoT is the Internet of Things, right? So I'll talk about the things that I don't cover in the book or in future lectures. So first, cybersecurity and data risk. So their concerns is smart cities, right? They require a lot of data to function, right? But then hackers can target data centers, city infrastructures for ransomware and sabotage, right? They can mess up the with the whole city. Right? So it's very common, like even in the US, right? Hospital being targeted, all the files, the IT system are blocked, and hackers are asking them some a ransom to be paid in Bitcoin. Power utilities are also very exposed. Power utilities are, especially the IC system tends to be very old, right? And I don't know if they're easily hacked or not, but they but if a power, like let's say Con Edison in New York were to be hacked, it will, it'll be a big problem for businesses or for households and so on, for electricity, for gas distribution, etc. For the grid too, right? Second issue, lack of professionals trained in cybersecurity, IoT, and AI. It's a constraint for cities, especially in poor countries, right? So you have to think about in terms of these are countries in the south, in Africa and Asia and so on. They might not have the talents. If the talents is there, they might not want to work for the cities, right? They might want to work for the Google or the Meta of the world of Apple, but they might not want to work for the city of New Delhi in India, for instance, right? Where the pay probably is very low, productivity is very low, and so on. Right? So it might be very difficult to attract talent. So this means that cities need to partner with technology companies, right, to develop smart city projects. But still, they have to build some in-house expertise to remain in control, right? If you work with Google, but you have no clue what they're doing, it's very difficult to be a partner. At least to be an equal partner, right? Lack of trust, right, in AI and IoT is also a hindrance, right, for developing smart cities. Right? So trustworthy AI needs to respect privacy and the law, be unbiased, right? Be safe. Unbiased means so that it shouldn't discriminate, right? Respect fundamental human rights and values, as it is proposed, for instance, by the European Commission. So in Europe, they have a project of AI Act, right, to exactly do that, right, to build trustworthy AI, right? And so they classify, I think, AI activities into low risk, medium risk, and high risk, and they want to regulate heavily the high risk activities. There are clear concerns about the surveillance, right? Face recognition, right? DNA collection, phone tracking, as documented. So this Kian article, for instance, New York Times articles being published in June, where they document increased surveillance in Chinese cities. But these so as we mentioned, like policing, right? So you can use the CCTV to police a city, right? Identify criminals or identify concerning behavior and so on. That means that they have to track everyone, and they track everyone, but they track the face, as they know who it is, and they can track you, right? You leave the time, the time you leave your home, you go to your office, you go for lunch, you go back. They can track you the whole day, and if they track your phone too. Right? They can also track your conversations, and they can map, what's happening on your phone, on the virtual world with the real world, and so on. So there's a lot of concerns for privacy. So in China, they might not have a lot of choice. It could be the choice that they prefer safety over, privacy. But this is not only China, right? So you have it in other countries. So a recent example is in Toronto. So in Toronto, they had a smart city project led by a subsidiary of Google. The subsidiaries were called Sidewalk Labs, and it has been abandoned. So part of it was due to COVID, but part of it was about because of concern about privacy. Right? I think the people in Toronto, the Canadians living in Toronto, were not comfortable holding so much data to a private company, to Google, in fact, right? It's not only you give data to your city, right, to the city of Toronto, but also you give data to private US companies, and they might be concerned about that. At the end of the day, Google is there to make money too, right? It's not only a non-profit initiative. So to conclude, the societies and communities are expanding, right? I've seen that they're expanding. It's going to be a growing challenge. I think there's billions of people are going to move, to cities, especially in the poorer countries, right? So not only the population is increasing, but the population is migrating from rural to urban areas. And when people move to cities, they require a lot of things, a lot of services, right? And a lot of needs, products, and services to be. AI can help using that Peacock framework: prediction, coordination, optimization, and control. So I cited some examples. We went over some case studies about smart transportation, urban planning, and issues around smart cities. So there are serious concerns about AI, and trustworthy AI will be necessary, right? Especially privacy, right? Do you want to give all your data to the city or private contractors, and they can track everything, you know, about what you do in your home, outside of your home, at work, on your phone, etc. So this is a big challenge. But we probably see more AI applications, right? As people work, AI experts, data scientists, urban planners, architects, city and government officials, environmentalists, and NGOs work together to manage and develop cities and communities. Here I've put some references. If you Google like smart cities, you'll find a lot of like interesting resources also on the web. There's one reference I haven't put it here, but you can look into it. It's called the U City, U-City, U for ubiquitous city. It is an initiative from South Korea. I think it was launched more than 10 years ago. Maybe in fact 20 years ago. An initiative on smart cities. So the idea was to develop open cities, open to foreigners, and to make the cities very smart. Right? I think one cities, I think Songdo. I think Songdo in the suburbs of it's not exactly suburbs of Seoul, but it's I believe it's like 30 kilometers away from Seoul, if I'm not mistaken. A brand new like smart city where everything is connected. The trash you put in your home, it gets automatically guided underground to be recycled. So everything is connected. So it's a prototype of a smart city. And initially, it took a while to attract inhabitants. Part of it is that there's not that much as tax incentive to live there. But after a while, people get interested in living this kind of cities. So they make sure to have some green space, to have it clean, to have transportation and so on. It's very close to an airport, to I think the international airport. So if you live there as an expat, you'll be 2 hours from Japan, 2 hours from Shanghai, from China, and so on. So it's kind of relatively like interesting projects. In China, we mentioned that they are building a lot of cities, many like smart cities. But some of these cities are called like ghost cities, that nobody lives there. So one of the reasons is that it's probably too expensive for people to live there. Because it's not cheap to live there. And then you have chicken of eggs problem. Well, you need enough people to live there so that commerce, businesses, offices, etc., come and can go there, schools to open. Right? If you have you don't reach a threshold of a minimum amount of people to live there, you don't have enough schools and so on. So people don't want to go there, and if you don't want enough people, you don't have the schools. Right? So you have that thing so you need a bit of public support. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm going to stop.